Alright guys, talking about Ferocious here and his different scores across the ranking system. For recognizability, I would say he's got about a 7 or 8. He's definitely recognizable as the character, but he is not a perfect rendition of the character. They did a pretty good job of the head to make it look the same as the G1 counterpart. They did some creative differences throughout the design, as clearly the G1 is very plain and missing a lot of details. This one has all of those details. They did better color schemes and whatnot throughout. They gave him a nice skirt-based system. Knowing Transformers, they have to have this kind of thing to make it look right and look good. That was definitely solid instead of a big black chunk kind of in the middle. Overall, he definitely looks like part of a Predaking figure. He's got the right color scheme, the right design. He's got that big ferocious tiger on the front. Really good design. On to the design side, he's a little bit over-designed in some areas. There's a couple of places that there's just a little bit too much detail, I find, that they added that just isn't quite necessary and just overcomplicates part of the figure. He's a little bit bulky in some areas where they weren't able to hide, like the cat sections, the back of the feet, and the claws there were a little bit large, as well as this thing here that just turns into a weird backpack thing that's not quite useful. A couple of details like that lose it a couple of design points. It doesn't look like it perfectly represents the character, and a couple of the areas just don't quite look right. He's got a better than average hand to head size ratio, so that's pretty good, but the hands are definitely small compared to the forearms, a little bit ridiculously so. So he is going to struggle to look right in some poses and whatnot just because of how small the hands are. So I would definitely say, again, around 7 or 8 for his overall design. He looks cool. They added a lot of creative ideas to the design, but there's a couple of areas that don't quite fall right. Articulation and posability, he's got a really great score in this form. He's got the full rotations, double joints all over the place for nice, good arm position and leg position. His fingers have multiple joints in them, and the joints all are on balls, so lots of posability there. Due to the chunky kind of arm things, there's a couple of poses, I guess, as well as this cat coming off the front, there's a couple of poses he can't get. He cannot cross his arm across his body very effectively. So he is not able to get a lot of the poses I like, where he's like has one hand on top of the cannon and the other hand shooting the cannon. Like, it doesn't quite line up the way I would like. So there are some posability wise, but that's just kind of the design of the figure. Unless they had found a way to shrink in the head, so the front part of the head like folded backwards a bit, or this tucked inside the body a little bit more, they were never going to be able to get those all the way poses. And also, due to his tail sculpt here, we cannot get a very great back leg movement because it ends up hitting the tail. So although he has really great leg posability options, they can go all over the place, lots of bends, lots of joints, and lots of rotational options, this tail thing ends up blocking quite a few of the poses. There's also no rotation at the bottom of the knee, and so you have to rotate from the top, and then you get some not as ideal posing and angles from the poses, so you can't get in all of the poses that I would like to see. But he is pretty good. The ratchets and joints are very strong. He can hold his weapon with ease and does not have to worry about losing grip on that. Both the hands are able to hold onto the weapon, as well as the joints are able to hold it at any angle without releasing, which is fantastic. Overall, probably an 8 score on his posability and articulation. Things to watch out for when you first pull it out of the box. The feet are backwards, I believe. It came like this. You need to be able to rotate those feet around to actually get his toes, and then the ankle tilt works correctly. If you have them the wrong way, the ankle tilt doesn't work very well, and that's definitely a problem. Mine has a couple of issues with it. There is one of these ankle tilts here, this one, getting closer, is constantly tilted backwards a little bit, and the other one is not. Because of that, I can't get a very good straight up pose. He's always slightly leaning to the left. I also have an issue in mine where this panel is correct and on the right side, but the panel on the other side is the exact same panel instead of the mirrored version. This one should be the exact same as this, but opposite, but it is not. There's no way for me to fix this, and this panel is now backwards all the time. So they cannot quite tab into the right locations, and there's a couple of issues in transformation where that is the case. That might be a problem with yours. If you are starting to struggle with the hips a little bit, that is why. A couple of his parts are a little bit loose and come apart when you're transforming him. But overall, he stays together very well, and I am quite happy with this figure. I think he's a fantastic bot mode, looks really good to the character, has lots of posability, and you can get him in lots of action shots, which is exactly what I like from my Transformers. So I am ranking this thing overall probably an 8 on my score scale. Special features include excellent light piping behind the eyes to give it that awesome eye glow, ratcheted joints that hold really well together down on his legs, double joint there in the knee to get lots of really good posing, as well as a really nice ankle tilt to be able to get a wide range of poses in the legs. His arsenal is this awesome massive blade that he can extend the handle on. It comes originally, ooh, it's a little bit tight, like this. You have to do some work to be able to get this out, but it does flip all the way out, flip down, and give him an awesome sword. This sword has some wicked posability with this figure. He can hold it in all sorts of different ways, and really looks cool wielding this massive polearm. For a ranged weapon, he's got this compactable cannon that can be extended out into a sniper-like barrel. This is a really cool gun. It's got a lot of interesting uses. The different modes that you can turn it into can make all sorts of really cool posing with this figure. He also comes with one of the claws for the Predaking Combiner. The claws look pretty sweet. Massive hands, really great posability from these. These separate sections all over the place allow it for some excellent posability, but we'll look at that in the combined mode video. They made an awesome little mode as well with this little hand. You can turn it into this half of a crab thing, which combines with the other half of it from another figure to be able to create a little crab bot that wanders around with the Predaking team when they're not combined. Let's check it out in cat mode. Transformation of this figure was relatively straightforward once you did it the first time. The first time had a couple of rough moments throughout it, and if you want to learn more about transforming it, don't forget to check out our transformation guide on this particular figure. We go step by step through all of its different modes. This figure was a little bit tricky at the start, but the second and third time I transform it, it's really easy, except there's a thing going on here where these aren't pegging down as I would like them to. The tail is blocking it, so there are a couple of issues in their pegging and whatnot, but overall it was a lot easier than some other third-party Transformers. If you're dealing something like with Guardian or with the Moon Studios Raidatron, there are so many panels and things that require to come together, and this guy does not have that issue. So transformation wise, I would say 6 or 7. Above average transformation. It was easy enough, really straightforward once you knew where everything was supposed to go. The book was a little bit unhelpful. There was a couple of moments where I was confused by it, but once I figured it out, pretty easy. Looks fantastic. The awesome saber-toothed tiger design, I am loving it. He has a really good posture, good posability. The claws can all move around and he can get some pretty good action poses going on. Takes a little bit of stability issues to get him all riled up into the correct position when you're doing one of these, like chasing down a subject, pinning an enemy down, or all sorts of things like that, but it is really a pretty awesome figure. A little bit of an issue, not enough sideways head tilt for my liking. I like the head to be able to go a little bit further, but this is what it's got going on. Design wise, it is maybe a little bit too designed, like there's a little bit too much detail going on, adding a little bit too much. I like some of the details, I like the vent fanning and things like that, but there's some unnecessary seemingly staging going on in areas that just, I don't know if it was necessary to put in and still get the feel of the design. I like the spokes that it's got going on. It's got like this whole spoke system throughout it, making it feel very mechanical. The tail is a little bit boring, but that's fine. Overall, really great figure design-wise. Looks exactly like you're expecting it to. If you see this guy, you know that he's part of Predaking. He's Rampage. He's that saber-toothed tiger. They did a really good job of representing the character here with this design. Great posability, good features, and just a really awesome cat mode. Alright, so what do I think of the arm mode? Well, let's take a look at this thing. It is a little bit of a clunky mess, to be honest. This whole section with the legs here just adds so much forearm that gets in the way when you're working with it. The hand doesn't stay on as well as I would like. It's rather easy to slip off. The tail section here doesn't actually successfully clip where it's supposed to. There's these two sections here, and I find that I can't even push it down on there. It's too tight for the tail to fit. You have to do some like pressure on the bottom to pull these two parts apart to try and squeeze that down, and eventually you can get it in, but it just pops itself off as soon as any pressure is applied to it. So there's a couple of quality issues here, definitely notable. These two sections here with the, again, the paws are really in the way, and it makes the arm a little bit too bulky. So I would definitely give this low design points. I would say this is probably a 3 or 4 on the design scale. It is below average design, a little bit too clunky, too much going on. It has some good range of motion, so we definitely got a nice double tilt there on the mechanism. The mechanism cannot go much higher than that, so you can't really get really high up arm bicep curls because of this thing getting in the way. And rotationally, you're probably going to be limited to about that before it hits on the figure. So we're going to look at the combined mode in the future of all the combiners and see where his actual range of motion ends up being. But I assume, looking at this thing, that it's going to be a little bit limited. So overall, the rest of the Transformer is probably really solid, but I would give this arm mode, his combined mode, probably the lowest score of all, averaging probably around a 4. It's got too much going on, it's hard to tell what exactly is happening, too many clunky bits in the way, and not great mobility. Overall, I'm very satisfied with this figure. I think it looks really cool in all of its different modes, and I'm really excited to see how this full combiner ends up looking.